about 30 and people's just trickling in. So we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Matt Bricker. I am the VP of Events for Stanford Angels Entrepreneurs Southern California, also the chair of the Media and Entertainment Group. So this is our first digital event. We've done some other events over the last couple of years, some mixers, some panels, some dinners, but obviously with the COVID situation, we had to shift like everyone else. So this event has been a long time in the making. And so we're very excited to have this all-female panel of rock stars give us some perspective today. And so the first, though, I'm going to kick it over to Tom Michael from Dentons, just to give a little bit of an intro from Dentons, who is our group's major sponsor. And then we'll kick it over to Alexa, who's going to moderate and get things rolling. So Tom, if you want to just kind of give your quick intro, and then we'll get moving.
Sure, great. Thanks, Matt. And hey, everyone, hope everyone's well. It's good to see people again after a long time. We're happy to be involved, happy to help host this. And as Matt mentioned, happy to be a partner of Stanford Angels and Entrepreneurs. For those who don't know me, my name is Tom Michael. I co-chair Dentons' U.S. startup practice, which is part of our global venture technology group, which Helen Reeves is a part of, who's on today's panel. And we are here to help with whatever you need, especially in these times. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Helen or to Matt, and we'd love to connect. So with that, I'll happily send it back to Matt and look forward to it.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Tom, and thanks for Dentons being such a great partner and sponsor for the group. And now I'm going to kick it over to Alexa from Halogen, who is going to be our moderator, and she can give a little bit of an intro, and then we'll get rolling. And for any of the attendees here, if you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask questions at any time throughout the panel. We have the very end of the panel is where we'll kind of sift through those and get the panelists to answer them once we've gone through some topics that we've prepared. Feel free to ask those questions at any time or again towards the end, and we'll be looking at them and answering them that way. We kind of have chat and some other things disabled that you might be used to on your regular Zoom meetings, just to try to keep focus, but go ahead and feel free to use that Q&A at any time. So without further ado, kick it over to Alexa. And once again, thank you to all of our panelists and attendees, and we hope you enjoy.
Thank you everyone for attending. This is fun that we've got over 50 people tuned in to talk about the intersection of bias and risk. Big thanks to Matt Bricker for making this all happen. And a lot of us are based in Southern California. So I think this, despite the fact that we could be spread out around the nation today, this is a unique event, I think, really for Southern California and entrepreneurship and angel investing in LA. So the topic today we're going to dig in on is the intersection of gender bias and risk, and entrepreneurship and venture are risky businesses. So we're lucky today to have 5 really stellar women who have taken bets on building something big. And I'd love to take a moment to have each of them introduce themselves and their role or their business. If you could all just take turns.
Should I start? I'll kick us off. So I'm Nicole Clark. I'm CEO and co-founder of Trellis, which is a legal data and analytics platform. We use AI and machine learning to really deliver strategic insights to lawyers so that they can make better decisions.
I'm Jessie Draper. I run Halogen Ventures. We invest in early stage female-founded consumer technologies. Yeah, that's me. And Alexa and I work together, so she's fabulous.
Jessie's my boss.
I can go next. I'm Bridget Vuong. I'm co-founder and CTO of Fuse Inventory. And what we do is we're an inventory planning solution for the next generation of commerce. So at a basic level, we help our customers predict how much inventory they should order and when they should order it.
Hi, I'm Helen Reeves. I'm a partner in the Dentons Venture and Technology Group. So I'm an attorney that works in the venture space.
Hi everyone, I'm Chelsie Lee, founder and CEO of Shipsi. We provide any retailer the ability to do scheduled or on-demand delivery using all of the existing infrastructure out there.
Chelsie is also one of the founders that Halogen has invested in, so we have a lot of relationships here.
Yeah, and now we have some new customers thanks to Halogen.
Great. Exciting times.
Yeah.
To get started, I was curious, between you, Chelsie, and Helen, your role models as women, curious where your appetite for risk came from, and how you judge your appetite for risk.
I'll start. I am a Brooklynite from New York, a woman of color, also the child of two immigrants, Nigerian immigrants. So I think for me, I don't think of myself as sort of this super risky, person that takes a ton of risks. I think of it more as really believing in the power of my own sort of agency and the ability to sort of make things happen if I really apply myself and have a goal in mind. So for me, it's sort of a combination of really wanting to make big bets, wanting to bet big on myself and believing in having sort of self-belief, which I think you just have to be in the venture space, quite frankly, whether you're representing clients or whether you are yourself starting a business. And then I think it's also, I think women particularly are always underestimated. And I've always felt that being underestimated is actually like a weapon that you can use in certain circumstances to, get more, advocate for yourself, create leverage for yourself. And so, I don't know, it's sort of a meandering answer, but for me, it doesn't feel like I'm taking a lot of risks. It's never really felt that way. It's always felt like I've just had like a lot of vision and a lot of goals I want to achieve. And I felt really strongly that I can achieve them and that it's not risky. It's just sort of like my passion. So I hope that answers the question, but it's never felt risky to me. It's always felt like I have a certain agenda or a certain plan I've had for my career, and I've been chasing that. And if that means taking a couple of risks, then so be it.
I'll go next, I guess. I was raised in a family that risk was encouraged, and was always constantly being pushed. And if you were afraid of something, you had to try it before you could quit. And you had to finish the job, even if it terrified you. And my dad would do things like drop me in the middle of the ocean and say, you might have to be able to swim 10 miles sometimes, so figure it out. And so I can now swim, probably 3 miles, and then I might drown, but, and so I was always kind of raised that way. And I think that is, I grew up in Silicon Valley. I'm wearing my cardinal red. I did not go to Stanford, but I grew up literally on Stanford campus and grew up going to the basketball games and the women's basketball games. And I'm a 4th generation investor and the first female. And in terms of risk, I grew up around these incredible men, but I didn't think I could be one of them because I was a female. And so I actually went into entertainment, and something that helped me take even more risks is right after, and it wasn't like as, convoluted as it sounds. My mom raised 4 incredible children and worked so hard doing that. But the woman in my life who I could see, and they say you can see what you can be, was my aunt. She was a very successful actress in the 80s on a show called 30 Something, that is, shameless plug, coming back to Netflix. And I was like, oh, that's what women do. And so I went into entertainment. I studied acting at UCLA, and through that, right after school, I just started auditioning and doing whatever I could. And I got so many no's, like so many, that I don't even hear the word anymore. Like they just don't even affect me. And I think it made me so much stronger, because you would get no's for just silly reasons. And it's such a funny industry. And so I have always kind of like taken that with me as well, where it's just like, okay, I can't take this personally. I just need to keep going. And so that's kind of a couple of the places I think my risk came from.
Yeah, fun. We all have to tune in. When's the Netflix special soon?
I don't know, because productions were all put on hold until I think January, right?
Yeah, fair. And for our founders, we'd love to hear about that initial risk you took starting your business, and where your sort of appetite for risk comes from.
Sure, so I can kick us off. It's interesting. I think that I was a litigator prior to starting my business. So similar to Helen, we've basically been trained to avoid risk, right? So really what I did was spend a ton of time attempting to de-risk the venture before jumping in. And I did that in a variety of ways. I did a ton of market research, but what I did was really put myself in sort of the shoes of customer number one. So I had a hypothesis that trial court data would make me a better litigator, that being able to access it and see analytics. And so I, created with awesome engineers, the ability for me to continue practicing and utilize this data and see if I would in fact have a competitive advantage. And for me, it was such a game changer for my practice that it actually was the thing that gave me the courage to jump and to start Trellis. And in an interesting way, I would say before I actually jumped, the risk profile sort of switched for me so that it wasn't, oh my God, quitting my job is so risky. It was, what about the risk of the missed opportunity of not taking this all the way? And I could feel how big that was. And that was so much riskier than continuing to litigate. And so that's how my journey went.
Sure, I can go next. So I'm also the child of immigrants. So my parents took a lot of risk in coming to the US and in trying to create as much opportunity as they could for me. And so I actually ended up going to Stanford, and I was surrounded by a lot of people who really wanted to take risks and wanted to start businesses. And I think I also wanted to, but I was really not quite ready to take that jump right when I graduated. And so the way I went about doing it was I ended up joining Google. I decided that, I wanted to get some real world working experience. I wanted to really learn like engineering best practices and all of those things. And after, my time at Google, I got to a point where I felt like I wasn't really growing that much anymore. And that's when the opportunity for Fuse came up. And so for me, I don't really see this as a huge risk I took. I see it as more of like a bunch of stepping stones that sort of led me to be confident in being able to start a business of my own.
I can go next. So for me, I wasn't the kid who wanted to be running a company. Like it just didn't cross my mind. I think I would consider myself almost a type A vagabond that, I like to dabble in a lot of different things. And I really believe that it's trial by fire. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I was naive to, what's an angel investor, or how do you raise money? Or like, how do you build a company? I had no idea, but I did know that I had a massive opportunity in front of me. And when I reached out to anyone in my retail network, I think Nicole touched on it and Jessie touched on it, like, Jessie's with breaking through these brick walls, and like, you don't think I can do it? Well, watch me. And then it all leads on to each other. And what Nicole had said about all these building blocks and stepping stones, it's really true. I think it's just in a delicate manner. You have to know when to utilize it to your advantage and when it's a little bit offensive. I tend to have more of a harsh or direct approach. One example that comes to mind is everyone said that it was this impossible supply chain problem to solve, and that we couldn't do it from a technology perspective or an operational perspective, or no driver networks were going to want to work with us. Well, a year ago, we had 350 cities, or access to 350 cities, and the latest report that we just got was 850 cities across the US, which is amazing growth. And so an angel investor in particular told me that it couldn't be done and had to be really high average order value. And since speaking with him, this was years ago, but I had spoke to him. He said we couldn't do it, so I made a website and we hooked up some random drivers to it. Like, this is like random Postmates or random DoorDash drivers. And he called me a few months later and said, I'm sorry, I had one job. It was to bring the birthday candles to my grandson's birthday party. And his argument was we couldn't do it. It had to be a big, big, expensive thing so people would pay for it. And I kind of drug him through the mud a little bit and said, like, oh, was his friends there? Were any of your other grandkids there? And I said, can you hang on a second? And I put him on hold, and I told him to go to this test website. That was like a real live working website. And I had him place an order for birthday candles, and I had nothing to lose with it. Like, I knew he wasn't going to invest, but I kind of just wanted to show him that I could do it. So I directed him to this test site to place an order. I replaced the generic image with birthday candles. I took some birthday candles out of my kitchen drawer and he got them in 18 minutes. And it was just kind of I think it's tell me I can't do it. Okay, watch me, but in a delicate manner. So I don't know how risk adverse, but I think it's trial by fire and you don't know unless you speak up or unless you ask some of the hard questions.
I love that angel investor relationship. I found a stat from the National Women's Business Council that women founders are 3 times less likely to approach investors, angel investors and VCs, and less likely to ask for capital from their personal networks and their close friends. And I'm just curious, all of your perspectives, what you recommend in your approach to fundraising and why?
I can jump in first. So particularly, I think in the really early stages of you don't have anything, you're going to friends and family. I think there can be, and I can take it from my own perspective of the way I felt. First of all, you have to believe in yourself that you can do this. If you don't, other people, investors aren't going to believe, your customers aren't going to believe. So you have to know you can do this. But second, I remember one of the first friends and family investors that I pitched, and after he said to me, "Thank you so much for bringing me this opportunity." And that's when it switched for me. And I recognized that I wasn't asking someone for money. I was bringing them an opportunity to get in on something huge and meaningful really early. And so when you come at it with a recognition that you're actually giving a gift to other people to allow them to be a part of this, then I think it changes the mindset a little bit and can really help with that.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said. And, personally, based on my experience fundraising and then investing in women, you do see this, I actually think it's all around, it's an education problem. Men pass the pocketbooks down generation to generation, and we're just kind of dabbling there now, and men control the majority of the capital today because that's just what has happened. And so women just don't know to ask. And something that's been incredibly frustrating for me as an investor is that women are more comfortable giving away their capital than they are investing it. And so when I set out and launched our first fund, I was like, okay, we're focusing on women. There has to be a woman in the founding team. And I'm going to go after the female billionaires. I didn't get to sit down with all of them, but I did find quite a few. And it surprised me so much that I would have 6 or 7 meetings with these women, and they just felt a lot more comfortable writing multi-million-dollar checks, which they would brag to me about, to charity. And I think there's a time and a place. I'm giving as much as I can, especially right now. I believe there is a time and a place for nonprofits, but I also really encourage, we were talking about risk, women to take more risk with their capital. And we need men to encourage that as well. But I think there's this sort of philosophy where women are like, we're comfortable giving away money. And it's been so frustrating raising a fund focused on diversifying the founder base by gender and race, et cetera, because women feel more comfortable giving it away. And people think it's like a charity case or something. People think investing in women is charity. And I can't tell you, because there are some funds out there who are led by women who are starting out and they're like, invest because women aren't getting enough dollars. And I'm like, invest because we are killing it. Our founders are raising half as much capital and doubling the return in half the time. And, we're seeing that. We had $200 million exits last year, and that's just the beginning phases right now. And I think we need to look, like you're saying, it's an opportunity. Diverse teams in every way breed success. And I think that's how we really need to think about it.
I think I would add to that too, that there's certainly a fear of no, or a feeling that if you hear a no, that somehow defines your whole, you should just give up. I think that there are a lot more, and I don't want to call it a gender thing, I don't know what it is, but there are a lot of guys I see, potential clients, early stage founders I see, who have an idea and a prayer, and they go out and they hear a bunch of no's, and that does not at all deter them from continuing to ask for that money from whoever they may know in their network. I think a lot of women are a lot more reticent once they hear a couple of no's. I think women spend a lot of time in the ideation phase and making sure that everything is just right before they go out for the money, which I think like at some point you just have to go for it. And then I think also to keep in mind, what I would say to founders who maybe are listening in is, I think of a no as either a delayed yes or an entree to someone who will say yes, right? So if that person's saying no, okay, that's not an opportunity. Maybe they can give you advice. Maybe they can extend an intro to someone else that they may know who's interested. Maybe they can extend an introduction to someone that you could bring onto your team that could help you. There's always value that you can get from any interaction, and it's just about not treat that no as just part of like a longer conversation, right? And I think if you approach fundraising that way, you'll end up not only with money, but with incredible networks and deep relationships and just value added.
I love that, an entree to something else. I love that. It's the entree. I love that. I mean, hearing a zillion no's, I think it teaches us not to give up, and the ones that, just give up, it's because they accept no as an answer. I think a big part of it for me was really the authenticity. In the beginning of fundraising, I wasn't educated enough on the things that I needed to know. And so I got up to speed, and I'm a quick learner and try to understand. One of the frustrations I think for a founder is that you meet one investor who says, only go after little minnows. If you don't, you're going to die. And then the other one that you meet with an hour later says, only go for the big whales. If you don't, you're going to die. And you end up like running through and jumping through all of these hoops for no one to write a check anyway. And it's really confusing when you're trying to figure out which way is up in a business, especially if you're pre-product, pre-revenue. And two, when investors are telling you to go different directions, but then your customers are telling you a different direction, and really like you're the expert in your business, you know it better than anyone else in the entire world. And I think having investors like Chelsie and like Halogen, that you can be totally honest and transparent. One thing that stood out to me the very first time that I had met Chelsie was that, I'll do my little Vanna White for you, my song and dance. And Chelsie, I don't know, you probably don't even remember this, but you interrupted me on something. One, I was like picking my song, my walk-in song, and I remember like, okay, I'm gonna go old school and authentic and like all of these things. But I remember that you had interrupted my Vanna White, and I was like, oh, maybe she actually gives a damn. And it was just, it caught me really off guard at the time. It did. And I think that you had asked a question around revenue, and my answer was something like, I have no idea. Like, I can make up some answer in the sky that you want, but I don't know until we try this. And I do know that I met, 5-year portfolio companies at the Montgomery Summit who want my stuff, but I don't have any money to build it for them. Like, you want to make a deal? And I think it's finding the right people in them, being really authentic and being honest about where you're at and transparent, even when you don't know the answers. Because I think that especially in the beginning as a founder, you're intimidated. You're like, whoa, they could write me a check, and not looking at it as the opportunity, but like, oh, I need this money to like pay people and build a thing. And I think it's just really finding the ones that you're like, hey, this really sucks and I don't know what to do right now. And I mean, there's good investors and there's bad investors, and just finding the people that you can be honest with and transparent with, and sticking with your gut on it.
I do have to say, Chelsie is like one of those founders that just doesn't take no for an answer. Like I always say, I'm like looking for founders who can walk through walls and like breathe fire. And to your point earlier as well, I think there's women feel like we have to have all our ducks in a row. And I can't tell you how many times these women come and pitch, and they're like, well, our revenue's like, I know it should be higher and this should happen. And like, again, Chelsea's not even in this bucket. Like this was never an issue for her, but I'll say to them, you just tried to convince me not to invest. And I've seen 3 other beauty tech companies in the last week whose numbers are not half as good as yours. And it's just funny because it's like, you need to just be confident and get out of your head. And also, no one's ducks are ever in a row. When did that happen? Like, people bring me these prototypes and they're like broken clay moldings because they couldn't build the hardware and couldn't afford to get an actual prototype to us because they're raising for that. Typically people don't have $1 million in their back pocket for R&D and to like build this hardware device or whatever it may be. You will always have another better product on the way. So everyone's always like, well, my next website's going to be better. Well, my next product's going to be better. It's it's always going to be better. Just show us what you have, because then we can poke holes in it and you'll make it even better than it was going to be. And so I think that is something that needs to like get out of women's head in particular, and to all the incredible men out there, because I never want this to turn into a man-hating club. We need you. I love men. We have 3 male CEOs out of 62 in our portfolio, and many, many other men working at our companies. And we need you to champion women and be like, hey, that's a good idea. Actually, your revenues are really, really great. We need you to invest in female founders, because it's about all of us working together. It's not about like women versus men. Anyway, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, I love it. By the way, Jesse, I just actually ran the numbers earlier this week, and we hit our July projections in December.
Chelsea's so great. She's like, I'll give you an update, by the way.
In December.
Investor update.
In December. July numbers in December.
Amazing. Amazing. Exactly. If any of the companies that are on the panel today are fundraising, I'm sure we can circulate some more information. Speaking of fundraising, one last question on that topic. Thought we could use this opportunity as almost like a little mini bias training. Something that has come up at the intersection of these two topics is promotion versus prevention questions. So a promotion question focuses on potential gains, and prevention questions focus on potential losses. And a Harvard study found that basically women get asked a lot more of these prevention questions, and the fellows get asked a lot of the promotion questions. And if you get asked promotion questions, you tend to get more capital. So I just wanted to ask if there are any sort of, favorite questions that the angels who are tuned in today could add to their toolbox that have served you all well, or other recommendations you've had for sort of overcoming bias in this fundraising process.
I mean, I love the general promotion question of like, how big can this be, right? Where they just allow you to show them a vision of what you're creating and really expand on the level of growth that you can hit. So it allows the founder to demonstrate their narrative and their vision really well.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Maybe something also more geared at the founder, like how do your unique experiences or your team's unique experiences really position you for success? I think because that sort of allows the investor to get out of like what their picture of what a successful founder might be or what a successful team might be, and to really let the founder themselves highlight the qualities that would make them successful.
I would ask the question also too about team, and sort of like, tell me about sort of how your team, if you can envision it, how it would grow out, what skill sets you would be bringing in, and when and why. Just talking about going from that small founder group to the larger group and scaling, I think is always an exciting place to sort of start.
Yeah, I love questions that we consider to be in the category of coachability. I'll throw them a curveball or be like, yeah, but what if all of your, manufacturers shut down? Like, how are you going to diversify that? Or what if all of a sudden we, had a purple competitor? I don't know, whatever. I will throw them something crazy and be like, what if you could no longer go direct to consumer and you could only go B2B? What would that look like? And I like to know that they're going to roll with it and that they're going to be open. I know Alexa was alluding to male versus female bias, but I think every investor has their own personal pattern recognition and biases based on their experience. And so I found that the founders that in that first meeting, I've said, hey, what if you go a different way? And they're like, no, we can only go this way. We have to run it into a wall. And if we run it into a wall, we'll just keep going through that wall. And we can't pivot no matter what. It's like, they're not going to be the ones who are ready for, say, COVID or any of these other situations. And so, the founders, I'm so proud of all our founders right now, because I've seen them make just incredible pivots. Whole businesses have gone online. They've launched new products, new revenue streams, and those are the founders you want, because it really comes all the way back to the person, and you need someone who's open, who's going to roll with the punches, because there will be so many. You have to climb quite a few mountains. It's never smooth sailing at all. So I look for coachability, and then like a little bit of like naivety, so that like they have no, I like it when they like have no idea. I think I've actually said to our team, they have no, I'm like, no, what's awesome is they have no idea how hard this is going to be. And I feel like they don't care because they haven't been through it yet. Because sometimes, you know, and I believe it's great to invest in second, third time founders, but sometimes those guys have scars when they get back into the same business. It's almost like, you know, they kind of tighten up and are afraid to go do it again because they know how difficult it's going to be. So I feel like I look for coachability and a little just kind of like naivety too.
Yes. Amazing. Chelsea's meanwhile blushing. She's like,
Yeah,
oh, no.
thanks. I would ask though, I'm gonna actually play a different question. If, say that's me, and say Jesse's like, what are you gonna do for this marketing plan? Or if COVID happens.
He's like, is this about me? Every single time.
Or B2C. I would say, well, like let's say your question is around celebrities or advertise, like some kind of TV or film. I'm going to give a secret to any founders. I would actually say, you know, I know that you have 5 years and you studied that. What do you think would be the best thing? Like, what would your recommendation be? And then now we're invested in the idea together. It's not just my cool idea. It's your idea too.
It's good. Flip it around.
It's a great move. Moving off from fundraising, I'm just curious about in your businesses or your experiences, any favorite stories of risks paying off? Sort of take us on that ride.
So one of the big early risks that we took, we're a trial court data and analytics company. And so for, you know, a number of years, we had scraped data and we had this, you know, proprietary data set that I felt was like my pot of gold and I was very, very protective over. And I think the initial plan was direct sales, enterprise, B2B. And I hit the sales cycle at large law firms and was like, we're a startup. We just aren't going to be able to withstand this length of time this early. And so I had to take this risk, which was really, really scary to me, which was, do we have the ability to create an SEO freemium product here? Can I allow, you know, Google to ingest some of my data and have that create the organic search that people arrive at our website and then convert? And so we tested it out first because I do, everything is a hypothesis and you have to test it. So we tested out first with just making judge biography pages live and public and basic information about judges. And we started getting so much traffic to those pages that we then took the next step, which was to create a freemium product, and it's paid off massively because it allows a channel of growth where we don't have to have paid marketing. And it was this thing that I was really afraid to do because here I was thinking all of the value that I have, I'm now like releasing into the wild. But ultimately it was the right move for the business.
Wow, that was like a really long silence. I mean, I'll go, but I don't know. I feel like everything I do personally is taking a risk. You know, every time we make an investment, it's sort of like, okay, we don't know what this is going to be because we're in the earliest stages. And I think the benefit of being a female investor is we take different things into account. You know, we are more, you know, they say EQ, we have much higher EQ. We are much more calculated risk. And I've seen that like when I look at my male versus my female CEOs for sure. But in terms of risks paying off just personally, I used to run this technology talk show. It was the first tech talk show. It was in 2008 and did 5 seasons of it. And through that, I started seeing these, I realized I'd interviewed incredible men for 2 seasons, and there were just no women in technology. And I was frustrated by this because I felt I couldn't go into technology because I had been a female around technology. And I realized that one of the issues was that women needed to be seen. And so I was seeking out these women. I was like begging these women in tech, which there were like 5, to be on the show. And I'm forever grateful to the women of fashion technology, because Jen Hyman from Rent the Runway and the Gilt Group girls and Rebecca Minkoff made it okay for women to come on the show. And then I had Sheryl Sandberg, and just things took off from there. It's way before Lean In. And so that, I had put out this like magic bat signal. And I was also simultaneously realizing, okay, I'm doing this talk show. It's going well, but media is really broken, and we're barely breaking even. But I'd started seeing these really early stage tech deals that were run by women. And I'd write these, I didn't have a lot of money, and I would write these tiny checks, you know, $1,000 to $5,000, whatever I could. If I saw a deal that I was like, hey, you're too early for the show, love what you're doing, can I write you like a pennies check and support you, or negotiate some sweat equity and get you media exposure? And I realized that I thought those were going a lot better for me in terms of just being able to sustain myself as a human being. And I put the show on hold because I was like, you know, this is just, it's just not working. And I took this risk, and I went and I raised my own fund. I pitched probably 500 people, closed maybe 50 of them. And then about 6 months into launching the first fund, one of these tiny angel investments I made, I sold it for a 25x return on the secondary market. And I had just taken this risk to full-time go into running a fund. And it was like, okay, I'm glad I like took that little risk, wrote that tiny check, and something happened. And that's something I just encourage more women to do, because you'll learn the more risks you take with your capital. You know, buy some Bitcoin, that's 1 to 17 in terms of female to male. And, you know, buy some stocks if you don't understand stocks. You know, you'll learn if you buy some Starbucks or something, you understand. And I know there's a lot of incredible men out there, again. So encourage your sisters and your mothers and your wives to do these things as well, because those risks will pay off big. These are long, awkward silences, and I'll fill them, but you guys need to jump in.
I don't want to be like the mean professor in school who calls on anyone.
Cold calling.
I'll take one. So I think the investing, what Jessie had said, one recommendation that I do to everyone that I wish I would have done sooner. I have this theory right now that the Upper West Siders of New York are going to be bragging about like who has a cooler RV, and they're not going to get on planes, and they're just going to like drive around in their RVs across the country. And I'm from the Midwest, so like that's probably more normal there. But so I was looking at Camping World. And there's a thing called Robinhood, which I'm like, you know, I'm not really into social media. Like, I'm just not that tech cool or social cool. And I bought it at $16, and I think yesterday was like 22 or 24 or something. But like, even things like that, like, I never thought that I would do that. But I'm like really on this camping spree right now, because I think people are just gonna drive around in RVs. So if anyone's looking for like stock, I would say that's one, and I took a risk on that. And I think taking the opportunity to teach and show up, like I've historically been the only one in sales on my team. And every time I go over something really fundamental, like right now, we're all just on sales mode because there's so much opportunity. We just did a product enhancement that's like easy for anyone to get up and running in a few minutes. And we keep getting that. And so I think you don't know unless you try it. And it's a really cliche answer as a founder, but like failing fast, but understanding when the time to fail fast, and understanding when it's just time to stop trying to break through that wall because it's not working. That is, I think, a continuous challenge for any founder of when is the time to sort of break through it, or when is the time to like realize this is not working and you need to change directions. And you don't know unless you show up. You don't know who's going to be at the party unless you go to the party. So just trying and being open to other things. I think now more than ever, everyone is experimenting in more things and trying odd things like startups at a corporate level. I think just being careful, like we took a big risk on having too many customers. We launched 4 massive marquee retailers, and I got our skis way out in front of us, but I had committed to a lot of things because I knew that my team could handle it, and somehow we did. Like, we had 1 person in customer service in Costa Rica in November, and we went from like a couple a couple orders a week to like a couple thousand in a matter of 3 weeks. And so, but we did it, and it really proved to me that the team, like we have the right team and the right product at exactly the right time. And so I think having faith in the people that you work with and taking a risk on some people and also cutting the fat when you need to.
I'll jump in with an example that's a little bit, I mean, as a venture lawyer, you know, you're constantly betting on your clients and, you know, basically sort of spotting them, you know, early on with advice. But this was more personal for me. This was, I had a friend who, you know, joined a very large company that, you know, I really wanted to bring in as a client, but it was weird because she was a friend. And I thought, I don't know. I mean, like friend, like we went to law school together. She was at my wedding. I was at her wedding, like a really close friend. And I thought, do I muddy the waters there? You know, is it weird to ask your friend for business? You know, that seems like it could be like a relationship killer. And, you know, then I just thought about it and I said, well, she's my friend. You know, we have a really strong friendship and there's no reason to be worried or afraid about that. She knows that I'm, you know, an attorney who wants to do well in my profession and she's in the tech space. It makes sense. And so I just sort of was open with her and honest with her. And I actually said, I feel kind of weird asking you about this because I know that we're friends, but, you know, I would really love to talk to such and such who you work with because it's directly in the space that, you know, I want us to, you know, build a practice, you know, build as part of our practice at Dentons. And she made the introduction. We got a ton of work as a result of it. And it actually, I think, was a huge part and instrumental in me making partner ultimately at my firm. So it just sort of taught me that if you're ever going to sort of get to new levels or, you know, achieve new things, you can't do the same things you've already done. You have to sort of break outside of your comfort zone on some level. And thankfully it paid off and we're, you know, closer than ever. So she actually left the shop that she was at, you know, before, and she's at a new shop now. So I'm like, hey, maybe there's another opportunity for us to work together. So it was a great outcome. And it also just taught me a lot about sort of breaking out of my own comfort zone.
And Bridget, I'm curious to hear, we have a lot of people have ideas of businesses and then they think they need a technical person to help them do it. So I'm curious, as a CTO, what are sort of the attractive things of a new venture? You know, you often get to pick which businesses you want to go help build. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so for me personally, I think I just really love the challenge of building something new. And for the space that we're in particularly, like it's kind of an engineer's dream because it's basically a whole world of optimization problems across the entire supply chain that we get to solve. And I think for me, it's really was more about my co-founder, Rachel, and really making sure that I knew Rachel from college. So we actually knew each other for a while and knew that we'd worked together well before in projects and things like that. So I think number one is always choosing the right co-founder because, you know, it really is kind of like a marriage. Like we spend so much time together. We go through a lot of ups and downs together. And then second to that is sort of the technology and the product itself. So, yeah.
Thanks. I think my final question, and please go ahead and ask anything in Q&A here, everybody in the audience, if you have any questions for the panel. We find sometimes at Halogen, when we're meeting women for the first time, they don't always toot their own horn. And so we'd love to give this opportunity for each of the panelists to give us some of those bragging points, whether it's about your business, what's going really well, and what should we repeat to our friends over dinner tonight about these amazing founders we met today.
I already hit mine. I can go again. Cross it off. We hit our revenue target for July and December last year. That's my big win.
Awesome.
That's huge. I'll jump. So, you know, I think every day there are sort of daily wins that we probably don't recognize and appreciate in the way that we should, because in startup land, sometimes the really big ones can be few and far between and you got to make it through the journey there. In general, wins that I'm super proud of. I'm really proud of our investor base, the quality of investors that believe in the vision and that support us. It's huge and is really encouraging. And I'm super proud of just seeing I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of monthly active users. That's amazing. There was nothing. And now, you know, there's a business and people have jobs. And so it feels really good. It's not something that you talk about a lot, but it's really nice.
I'm really proud of our incredible team. Like Alexa, you can't do anything alone. And she recently sold 2 of our companies, basically single-handedly during COVID. And it looks like we're going to do pretty well on those, which is amazing, which brings us to about 6 exits to date. And we're on our 2nd fund. We've sold businesses to Walmart, to P&G, a couple others. And I'm also just really proud right now because COVID hit us all just like a brick in the face. I went in week 1, we were kind of spinning and we had to flip our, 150 item diligence checklist on its head and basically came up with new criteria and created a whole new thesis in a matter of days. We got on the phone with all 60 of our companies in a week, and we came up with a whole new plan, which we've now executed, I think, swimmingly, and we've supported every founder we possibly can to the best of our abilities, whether that be with capital or resources or SBA information. And so I'm really proud of our companies. I'm really proud of how our team has executed during this time and where we're at today.
So same, I'm also very proud of our team. I think we've managed to do a lot with not very many resources. And we're also a distributed team. We always have been. And so hearing all the things that people are going through with COVID and like working with a distributed team for the first time, I'm actually really glad how close and how much of a family we feel like. And then also like with a small team, we've managed to build product extremely quickly. We've actually had to pivot a bit due to COVID because, as you know, it's kind of hard to forecast anything like this that's happening and really invest in other parts of our product. And we've really managed to do that thanks to some amazing team members.
I guess I'll end it just by saying sort of similar thoughts, particularly around the Dentons team and my venture team when it came to the payroll protection program and SBA and reaching out to all of our clients and sort of really like live giving them support and answers when they're sort of scrambling to figure out if they could apply for funds, helping to connect them with banks so they could actually access funds, and then walking them through board approval processes and weird regulatory sort of turns. I was really proud to see just how active we were in engaging our clients and just engaging the market and educating people and making our clients really feel taken care of, quite frankly, in a moment of true uncertainty. So I guess we've talked about team a lot, but I was pretty impressed and proud to be a part of that team.
Helen, I can speak to that. We're clients, and absolutely, you guys were amazing through the whole process.
Thank you.
We have lots of questions. Thank you everybody who's been submitting through the Q&A feature at the bottom on Zoom. I'll just start to rattle a few of these off. From Stephanie, what are some things angel investors can do to diversify their deal flow and invest in more women?
Well, you could invest in funds because if you invest in a fund, we actually have seen a lot of angel investors recently invest in, like, pull their money out of, because angels will write a couple small checks to a couple of companies. But during COVID, people are freaking out and like pulling their dollars back. And if those 3 companies go down or whatever, then, we're seeing, I've actually had investors call me recently and be like, hey, we'd like to put more money in the fund. We don't want to do our angel investments anymore because, we're kind of hedging, we have 30 deals per portfolio. And so that's one thing you can do. Plus you typically get the deal flow. We do things, and a lot of venture funds do things like this. We have pitch days with a lot of our companies, and we do, once our portfolio companies get to be a certain stage, they're too big for us to continue to invest in. And so we offer up those pro rata rights, or we'll raise SPVs, which is like a special purpose vehicle, which is like a fund specifically for one deal from our investors. And then we also we ask our investors to tell us like, hey, what industries are you interested in? Just so we know what to send them if we come across anything that we think would be of interest to them. So I think that's one way to do it. But then if you are an angel investor, you should look at your angel investments like a fund. You should assume you're doing like 10, because in the early stages, typically not all of those are going to do well. And we do things like build it into our model, but you should do 10 small investments. So take whatever angel pool you have and do 10 small investments is what I usually recommend. And then also the founders are great sources of deals.
Absolutely, I second that. If you know any female founders, reach out to them. We talk, we know each other. We'd be happy to connect you with founders that are raising.
We all knew each other here, that pay and flight. It's the good guys crew.
Small group, unfortunately. It's a small group of female founders, and particularly in a specific location.
I'd also say for angels that are maybe not ready to invest in a fund, if you're part of like an angel group, just making sure to push whoever's sort of managing that angel group to bring in and diversify and have founders pitching that are women and that are diverse. Being that person that's rattling the cage on that point, I think hopefully you're not the only person, but doing that will of course force their hand to chase those kinds of deals. So if you create that demand, there's definitely supply. So, I would really encourage angels to be vocal about that in their angel groups as well.
Mm-hmm. And meeting with founders. Like, I have gotten so much value out of LPs from Halogen or from other investment firms, even if it's a completely different industry, and hearing a completely different outside perspective, or you have no idea. I also think founders meet so many investors, just like investors meet so many founders, but it's a lot harder, I think, sometimes for founders to really know where your investor's expertise or background is, because we're the ones getting like drilled with questions a lot. But I'm like, wait, what kinds of things are you good at? Like, I made a cheat sheet for myself when we started getting a lot of investors, like, okay, if I have some marketing stuff, or this guy has like a financy geek intern that I can ask a bunch of modeling questions to. So I think also getting really, really close with the LPs, and specifically like anything and everything that you can help like give people to do work or have a different perspective or their network and connections. I've had like equally as much value utilizing LP help than I have with funds. So I think that we're not always aware of some of those things too.
I would also quickly just throw in there that I think it's really important for us all to be conscious of our own sort of unconscious biases. So one of the things I would say is, I actually found that in pitching female investors, and Chelsie, I never pitched you, but I found that I got more of those critical questions, those protection questions from females than I did from male VCs. And that for me was really hard, because what it ended up feeling like was there was a lot of talk about wanting to invest in women, but no one was actually putting their money behind it. No one was actually doing it. It was more of a conversation, which can be discouraging. And so for women out there looking to invest in women, like, think about the questions that you're asking and how you're thinking about the investment, and make sure that you're checking your own unconscious bias.
We have just some love coming from the audience. People are telling us that female relationships are so central to my identity as a woman, and that they loved the stories, Helen and Bridget. So thank you. And then a couple questions about what it's like fundraising in Southern California, and also what it's like fundraising during COVID. Any effects, one or the other?
I mean, we're not fundraising right now, but I know people that are. I would say that anytime someone says that something is impossible, it's impossible to raise during COVID. It's impossible to raise at Christmas. Like, any of those long-held beliefs prove them wrong. I'm watching people do it. There's money out there right now. Don't believe that something is impossible, and it won't be. So
go sell your way out of it. That's our game plan right now.
Fantastic.
We were recommending that our companies in the beginning of COVID, one of the recommendations we made was you probably won't be raising any outside capital. So go raise an internal round if you need cash to get yourself through January. And we're not saying it's impossible, you know, as Nicole mentioned, but just that seems to be more what you can count on. It's just moving a little slower as people are a little bit uncertain. But right now we're seeing people write checks and it's picking back up a little bit.
And COVID in general, how's this affecting your businesses?
So it actually affects our business a lot because a lot of our customers are the retailers who are being shut down. And it's not so much necessarily that they're losing money or their business is very negatively affected by COVID. It's just there's a lot of uncertainty and people are not as willing to spend money in times of uncertainty. And so really what we're doing now is trying to focus on one, building a much better product that would be helpful to them in all times. And number two, really focusing on what value we can bring to the relationship and what, you know, resources we can, or how we can be a resource to them so that we build that kind of trust in that relationship when they're ready to come out of are ready to spend money again on products.
I think being a resource, or what extra value can you add, just a table on this, like we're asking our customers to share city information on regulation. So our customers are any brand and retailer. So we went from a clear line of profitability with our first batch of major marquee customers to zero, like literally within 2 days. Insane. And so we can't, I mean, this is like a mandated store closure. Someone asked me what our revenue, again, I'll go back to the revenue question. Someone asked what our revenues are going to be this year. I said, can you tell me how long COVID's going to last? I don't know. Like then maybe I could tell you, otherwise I have no idea. But for us, we really got creative and thought about other ways that we can use our core product. So we made 2 different enhancements. We explored a bunch of different opportunities. One was a B2C opportunity. Another one that we're rolling out now is no integration. We thought, what's the most complicated thing for anyone to get our product? Well, now we're offering it in just a web link. So it can be the shop around the corner or a big retailer or someone giving a beauty webinar, and they can just enter an address. So I think it's taking a look at your core product and sticking with that, but also how can you modify it to fit the current environment? And it's also a challenge of, is this something that's going to be really good for us short-term and long-term? Because there's a lot of things that we can be doing right now to get more volume or like higher numbers right now, but they're not going to be better for us long-term or in a month or in 3 months. And so like it's a challenge as a founder to decide where to like point the resources and the team if it's something that's not going to be good short and long-term. And that's something that, you know, I'm continuously asking myself every single day and every single night.
I think it's a really, really good point, particularly taking sort of COVID and the fundraising piece and putting it together. We're in this environment where I have seen clients taking, debt financing and other, money on really crappy terms just because they're really nervous about, what the next, 6 to 9 months looks like. And I think you just want to be cautious about that. You, of course, want to keep your business alive, but you don't want to set yourself up to, be carrying a burden or be carrying, capital that really is quite costly down the road. So you just want to be thoughtful and balance those 2 things. You want to give yourself enough runway, but do it on terms that are not going to make that runway difficult down the road.
Fantastic. We have a question about how you add more diversity to your cap table, your board, and hiring.
I mean, I say, we went off of I grew up at Stanford basically, and I'm right off of Sand Hill Road, and I did not take that road to invest primarily. I said, we're looking for women, and we got women of every age, every race, and we were looking for the best deals. And I'm so proud that we have over 50% minority-led companies, and our age range is from 26 to 65. in terms of our founders. And that's because we went off of the traditional path. And so I'd encourage all of you to just seek out new networks. We take cold emails, we take applicants through our website. You know, sure, people get introductions to us as well, but I like to be very easily accessible. I saw a question there that was like, will you give out your contact information? Alexa and my team usually freaks out, but Jessie@halogenvc.com. Like, I'm a crazy person and I do it every time, but it's great for our deal flow. And so I think you can find us for sure, but I think if you are an investor, just go off of that typical path and reach out to founders. But I am telling you, investing in women like diversifies everything.
Thank you. That's awesome. I would just say sometimes it isn't easy. I mean, you have, particularly where we're legal and very male, tech very male, and then like the intersection of the two. And so it's not always easy to build a team that's super diverse. And so you really do have to be conscious about it. And it always is choosing the right person for the role, period. But you want to be conscious of, if you look around and notice that you don't have a lot of diversity, that at the end of the day, it falls on the leader. And we're responsible for creating the diversity that we want to see. And so really taking ownership of that and knowing that too.
Mm-hmm. I like that. And another thing that I would add on the back of that is I keep a running list on my calendar of like random calls, like old people from my network of like, okay, I should just find out what's going on at VF right now. Or like, oh, I wonder about that girl that I used to work with Saks like 10 years ago. We shared a desk together, right? Like some of those relationships. And I just keep this like running, the people that come into your mind out of the blue for who knows what, like if someone's walking down the street and looks like someone you once knew. And, I don't have any method to the madness of who I call when I call, but I've kept a lot of those relationships up just by calling them and saying, hey, I have like a random retail question for you, or random SaaS question, or logistics, or maybe it's like a healthcare question of something like, how do you buy healthcare in a procurement at 3M or something, like random. And kind of those people that just like stick with your gut a little bit and checking in with them at random. I am shocked the people that have answered my phone calls, like people that I haven't talked to in years and years. And now it's coming full circle where it's helping us diversify our advisors and, some of the people that we are working with. I've had, really, really just phenomenal people that come from large corporate retail that I just kept up with, by chance. Actually, one that I'm thinking of in particular came from an LP from Halogen, and they were furloughed. And I'm like, hey, do you have any projects for me to work on? And I call her when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning now to be like, okay, or let's like check in for the day. How are you doing? But there's a lot of really good talent out there right now. And I think that's a compelling reason as a founder. One, when everything does open up, I need to make sure that we're in a solid position in Q3 and Q4. And that's, the challenge right now from a resource perspective and how long we make everything last, and that we're making the right decisions to absolutely explode out of this. And two, utilizing our network and some of those LPs and other people from the industry to diversify that. And you'd be surprised, like who will pick up the phone or what it might lead to, even if it's a 5-minute conversation. So I think keeping some of those, and it doesn't hurt to call. I would rather call and then not answer. At least I put my best foot forward and tried.
Related to the, oh, sorry, Bridget, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it just has to be an explicit goal. I find that when you're like, for me personally, my experience with it has been with hiring, and hiring engineers and female engineers is not easy. But a lot of the times when you're looking at resumes anyway, like you really can't judge a full person by this one like sheet of paper they've written. So you really just have to make sure you're giving females and giving minorities a chance when they're interviewing with you. Mm-hmm.
A related question. Many of you spoke about having amazing teams. What are some of the things you've done to stay close during this time?
My co-founder actually leads a morning workout every morning for the team. Yeah, and it's really,
awesome.
it keeps everyone energized. It keeps everyone excited. Not everyone can make it every day, but it's this really nice way for us to sort of connect, get the exercise in that we want to get in, and have another touch point to make sure we're all doing okay.
And we actually do the same thing. We did the New York Times like scientific 7-minute workout or whatever that is, just because we're like, you have no excuse not to do this for 7 minutes a day.
Totally.
So.
It's so great. We drink.
Second best activity. Maybe first. Tied for first.
we have happy hours. We drink. We just share and talk about what we're seeing in the market, and what client called us with what crazy deal or crazy idea. So it's a lot of just sort of blowing off steam and having the opportunity to see each other. I think the video happy hours are nice because you can see someone sitting in their backyard or playing with their kid, or it just like having that connection. I actually think that that's something that in some ways has become a positive from COVID, is seeing people like in their natural habitat, so to speak, and being able to connect with them as people in addition to being colleagues. So for us, it's been drinking, but.
I love it. Alexa, do you want to tell them what I feel like you should talk?
What we do? Well, one thing we've been doing is when we take pitches, we surprise them because we're always in costume theme.
Yes.
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 So yesterday was sporty,
amazing.
sort of a sports theme, and our colleague Ashley was wearing full cycling uniform, helmet, and goggle, and her sunglasses.
That's awesome. I mean, that would be so nice. That would be disarming and genuine. I love that idea. That's fun.
Once you get to the like fifth pitch, you forget you're in costume though, and so you like, I can't tell you how many times we haven't addressed the fact that we're all way hats.
God, yes.
It just happens over and over, and then we're like, oh shoot, we need to remember we're on the third pitch, so we need to remember to tell them that we're in costume.
What's amazing is that people wouldn't ask, right? They're just gonna let it go.
They don't unless I think like one time they have, but they're so nervous to pitch.
So nervous, totally. Yep.
And so we're like, because we do a fun thing in our pitch days in person where we have a walk-up song. And everyone has to choose a walk-up song, which I think Chelsie was like alluding to.
Signed, sealed, and delivered.
We were trying to recreate that idea in the, and people pick the funniest songs. They're all like money-oriented or like girl power, or like we had Italian opera before, and people are just hilarious. Or like if it was a dog company, it's like who let the dogs out. But we realized that the tech just isn't, Zoom hasn't quite figured out the like jukebox situation.
Music intro. Yeah.
The costumes, which has been working, right? I feel like it's been working.
Yeah, it sets the right tone for sure.
Have you had any founders dressed up in costume? I would call like Nicole or say, hey, by the way, they're gonna be dressed up. You should come prepared. Wear your elephant costume or something. Have you had any founders wear anything or show up in costume?
No, we surprise them, so they have no idea, and then we're all just like in full gear.
I love it. I think the founders should start surprising you now. They should circulate.
They do. That you've got like sort of like a fluid personality when they say, "Oh man, I wish you'd told me."
Yeah.
No. Totally.
Yeah. Well, last question. Thank you all for joining. Final question is sort of, is there anything that you specifically are seeking right now, whether that's, investment or new contracts or what have you? And then question from the audience was, are you open to sharing your information and any materials as follow-up? So please.
I mean, I probably speak for all of us, customers. We all want customers. But generally for us, we're a legal data company. So litigators, state court litigators, we would love continued intros for what we're doing in light of COVID, because the legal industry is getting hammered right now, is giving 30 days free to firms. It allows you no risk to get in there. We know a boom in litigation is coming. There's going to be so much litigation coming out of COVID. So you can use us risk-free, get ahead of your cases, and be ready to take off when it comes. And you can reach us at info@trellis.law. And me personally at Nicole@trellis.law.
Yeah, definitely customers. So we target any retailers that have inventory problems, which should probably be all of them. So you can reach me at bridget@fuseinventory.com.
I will third that. Cash in any way, shape, or form. Revenue is preferred, but entertaining investment as well. Chelsie@shipsi.com. Why are you laughing? I'm for real.
We don't have customers typically, but we have portfolio companies. We're always looking for great, unique technologies in the consumer space. We invest in transportation all the way to healthcare, and we are early stage investors. So we like to sometimes be the first institutional money in, and then we're always looking for new investors. We're on our second fund.
And for me, as an attorney in the space, it's really meeting fantastic founders and getting to know you and your businesses, representing you at all stages, really. So that's, early, pre-seed, seed, A, all the way through to sale. A lot of my practice is a mix of venture financing and M&A. So if you're a founder who, quite frankly, doesn't have an attorney yet and is thinking maybe this is the time to talk to someone, I'm happy to just get on the phone, talk you through issues. If you're not quite ready, that's okay. But just to start that dialogue, because this is an important time, I think, for everyone to sort of retrench and rethink strategy. So I'm at Helen, Helen.Reeves at Dentons.com.
Well, thank you all. I don't know if Matt's rejoining us to sign us all off, but this has been a real pleasure. Thank you.
I'm here. So once again, thank you to all the panelists and to Alexa for being such a gracious moderator. I think this was really amazing. I learned a ton of stuff as well. And I think it was just such a cool perspective. I'm glad it came together. So a big thank you to the 5 panelists and Alexa again to you. And thanks to the Stanford team for putting this together. And then of course, thanks to everybody that joined. We had a really good turnout. I think we peaked close to 80 and we still have close to 60 on after over an hour. So really great questions. Thank you so much for joining and engaging. This was a really good first experience for us doing a webinar. So there definitely will be more to come, but we really appreciate it. Check out the chat. I put our bit.ly link there. You can see our website if you want to register for the group, especially if you have a connection to Stanford or you're interested in investing or being a founder in the SoCal space. But again, just a big thank you to everybody. I think this was really amazing. Some great stories, wonderful insights, and we're just so appreciative that everyone could take the time and come together here, especially during this wacky and unique time. So feel free to reach out, to any of us if you have further questions, and we will definitely be throwing some other events in the future. So again, thanks for everyone, and hope you have a great afternoon or evening wherever you are. And this was awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See everyone. Bye.
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 Bye, guys.